Okay,
Now,
great.
a slight difference with a text is that generally there's going to be an intercept. And I'll tell you why. Because when you text someone, you're not connecting to them. When you have a phone call, you're going to generally not have intercepts because you actually connect to the person that you want to talk to. When you leave a message, a voicemail, which includes text, because generally they don't get picked up right away, there's not the interaction, you may see intercepts in the chart. And all that tells me is that the person didn't talk to the other person in the phone call, that they left a message or they called and they didn't answer. So I'm just saying you will see intercepts in text messages, but they do apply. They do count. Same thing for a knock on the door. If somebody knocks on your door, they're the first house, you know. Now, the call or the communication itself will be the third house. So if it was a letter, you might see like a Mercury or a Gemini influence. If it was a heated discussion, you might see some Mars. Um, the third house represents the actual communication. But the first house is the person coming, calling, knocking, reaching out. And the seventh house is the recipient, the one who's picking up the phone or answering the door. Okay. And that way, yeah, you can do a quickie reading on yourself or the caller as to their health, even, you know? And that's why I said with true crime cases, I have learned that death on a horary chart of a call or a knock is going to be the moon in the eighth or the signifier, which is the ruler of the first in the eighth, which is why I never leave my house. I never leave my house with moon in the eighth or the signifier, ruler of the first in the eighth. I've just seen too many murder charts. I just don't do that, you know? I can't tell you how many charts I've done where the ruler of the first house is in the eighth and they never made it home, you know? Was there any other questions for now? Because yeah, you can see why this, by the way, this is segueing into why I'm going to start doing more private classes for you guys so we can start looking at your specific individual charts and picking them apart. Because that's right now I'm speaking in very general terms because I'm trying to teach everybody that's listening. But if we want to dig, really like Ricky, we need to dig in and see what's going on with your family's health. Well, we got to do that private offline and not record it. And,
Yeah, yeah, that was a good
yeah.
example, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I just had somebody ask me today, can I get private one-on-one? Yes. This is very general because we're recording, we're broadcasting. So private, we're going to dig into your specific chart and not be recorded and we can really look at things, you know? All right. All right. So what I wanted to do is on that thought of the phone call, I wanted to do a segment on these missing scientists. So I probably should reintroduce myself again. This is Jody Williams of the Astrology Academy. And true to my name, I wanted to look at some true crime cases as I told myself, I wanted to see what was going on with the missing scientists. Is it a coincidence? Did something happen to them? And anybody that's in the group, if you have got a feeling or an impression or whatever, you want to jump in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a recording of anything we talk about connected with a true crime case and turn it over to Crime Stoppers. And Crime Stoppers gives us like an actual case number so that if anything we say is relevant, they're going to let us know. And the other reason I do that is I've been dealing with the Epstein case in a personal way for probably 40 something years, since the 70s. Okay. And I learned the hard way that when you're dealing with that kind of corruption and you go directly to the authorities, that cases tend to get buried and witnesses get hurt, as we've seen. Okay. So a friend of mine, his name was Daniel Bogdan. He was the U.S. attorney here in Nevada for a few years, and I worked with him on some cases. And you know, I talked to him about that. Like, what do you do when like the people you're supposed to report a crime to are actually part of the crime? What do you do? And he's the one that told me about Crime Stoppers. And he's like, anything you report to them, they will investigate no matter who it is or what it is. And let me tell you, the things that I've seen reported to them, I have seen taken care of no matter who it is. So I'm really a believer in, if you got something to say, take it over to Crime Stoppers, and they do give you a case number. They do get back to you. And that's the thing. If you're a psychic or an astrologer and you actually have an impression, you don't want to go to the family. You don't want to get in the middle of an investigation. Take it to Crime Stoppers. Tell them what you got to say. Let them give you a case number and let them handle it the right way. Because I've also, if you listen to some, I've stumbled, when I was young, I stumbled into the middle of some cases and got myself in the really deep mixes by approaching the family directly. Don't want to do that again. Okay, so just, report it over to Crime Stoppers and then make it an official report. So that's what we're going to do with this. All right, so what I did here, let me
Okay.
ask you this. While I'm talking, Ricky, can you do William Caseland was February 27th? Can you run this for me while I'm talking?
Sure. Yeah. Hold on. February 27th.
Yeah, 2026
February 27th, 2026. Okay.
at 11:30 a.m.
And okay.
in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
Now, evidently, he walked out of his house, they said between 11 and 12 that morning, and then literally just walked out of the house and disappeared. Now, if you run this chart, you remember in previous classes I've said when Mars crosses the angle, that's when people get up and leave the house.
Oh,
Okay,
that's right. I remember.
right? Okay, in this chart, we see Mars 27 degrees on a 28-degree Aquarius midheaven. So that tells me, now I ran my chart for 11:39 a.m. So I believe at 11:39 a.m., maybe 11:37, right about there, when Mars crossed that angle, that tells me that's when he left the house. Now, is it important to know this? Because guess what? The news lies. Reporters get things wrong. Police give bad clues. I mean, a lot of times what you're reading in the news is going to be a lie. All right. But I know that when Mars crossed that angle, somebody got up and left the house. So I do believe that that's when he got up and left the house. All right. So do I have the right chart? Yeah, they said it that's when he got up and left the house. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is take a look and see what the hell happened. All right. The moon is at 22 degrees. Oh, okay. Guess what? Now I'm going to look within 1 degree. So I'm going to ask myself, that's why I wish I'm going to have to get better at this camera.
Should I
This is
change
what,
it to 11:39 because it's showing the moon at 21 degrees on the chart I have?
yeah, because I ran it up until Mars crossed the angle, and that's when
Okay.
I knew was when he left, and it was 11:39. So that's when I think he left.
Okay, let me change it to that so that it
I'm
matches.
recording, kiddo. Okay, I hear my daughter letting the maniac dog out. All right. And this is why I use highlighters, is because, of course, the first thing I'm going to do is
There we
see, all
go.
right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see Mars crossing the angle. That tells me that's when he left. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the moon. All right. I'm seeing the moon at 22 degrees of Cancer. Now, interesting enough, there's two signs that are called the mute moon. One is moon in Cancer, the other is moon in Scorpio. Now, what mute means is he's not going to say anything, you know, and we haven't heard from him. So I mean, it's just telling me he's not saying anything. Now, that also means that he didn't leave a note. He didn't call someone and say, I'm leaving the house. So I'm also looking at this as an event. And I'm going to say he didn't say anything. He didn't leave a note. And this is when he left the house. So that's what I'm going to know on this chart so far. Now, I'm also going to look at what happened at that moment he left that house. That means, what did the moon last do? All right. Now, the moon is at 22 degrees of 02 minutes. Mercury is at 22 degrees, 23 minutes. Now, what that's going to tell me with Mercury in the 10th house is that when he left the house, he believed that he was going out in public, which is what the 10th house is, on a work-related matter. So his reason for leaving the house had something to do in his mind with meeting someone in public outside the house connected to work. So his motivation for leaving the house, but here's the thing that I'm going to say is crucial, is the moon at 22 degrees and 2 seconds or 2 minutes to Mercury at 22, 23. That's going to tell me that's a moon applying to Mercury. So that's going to tell me who he met. All right. So when he left the house and he didn't leave a note, he didn't say anything, who he met was Mercury in the 10th, which means somebody he worked with. And Mercury's going to tell me a young person. Mercury's also, as you know, a communicator. So I believe somebody called him or communicated and said, would you come meet me? That's what I think happened as to why he left the house. Now, we also see Neptune is conjunct in Saturn. Interesting, but it's not at 22 degrees. That's earlier. That's at 1 degree. All right. Now, right before, which would be 21 degrees. So before he left, sometime, because it's a difference of 1 degree, okay, I'm going to say sometime within maybe an hour before he left, I'm going to say he talked to a woman. And I'm going to make an assumption, probably his wife. Before he left, I think the last thing he did before he left the house was he talked to a woman, which I'm going to assume is his wife, but maybe there was another woman he talked to. I don't know. All right. All right. Now, what else have we got? Okay. The next thing is 23 degrees. So the moon's next aspect after he left the house and met this person, this Mercury, which is a person that I think he believed was a work meeting, we see Chiron at 23 degrees Aries in the 11th house. That tells me that he thought this person was a friend. And because it's in Aries, I'm going to say that I think he got hit on the head. Okay? I think he went out, thought he was meeting somebody on a work-related matter. That's why he didn't say anything to anybody or leave a note. And I think that shortly after he left the house, I think somebody hit him in the head. And that's because of Chiron ruling an injury with Aries. Okay, now what comes after that? What comes after that is at 27 degrees, I see Mars Uranus from the 9th to the 12th, which tells me somebody hid his body far away. So he's gone. I don't think he wandered off and ran off with some woman. All right. Now, maybe he had an enemy. I don't know. I mean, I could go deeper into it, but before I go deeper into Stephen, I'm going to have you run another chart for me, Nikki, if you can, which is Steve Garcia.
Okay.
All right, Steve Garcia, same thing, evidently just walked out of the house. And he walked out of the house on August 28th, 2025 at 9 a.m. And he was also in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay. So now in this case, it's you're going to see something a little different here. But maybe not. Because as I said, all right, is Mars crosses the angle when people leave the house. Now in this chart, we see Mars has just crossed or is about to cross the ascendant. That's another angle. So that's holding true. That tells me that's when he left the house.